this point, I think we're actually going to hear from Congressman Gibson. He would like to address some of the points. So, Congressman.
Yeah, thank you very much, Holly, and good morning, everyone. Great to be with my colleagues. Thank you for spending time here on Saturday morning so we can hear your point of view and look to bring some clarity where we can. What I want to do is address the federal level. Then I want to talk about the state level. But then what I want to do is talk about the broader implications of what's going on here. You know, first thing at the federal level, no doubt many of you have heard about the Feinstein bill, the gun ban. I oppose that, and let me just tell you that there's no traction in the Congress to do that. So let me just set that straight, first of all. The second of all, that, you know, a crowd such as this, and really everywhere, wide agreement that we should do all that we can to keep weapons out of the hands of criminals. Now let me just tell you, last year we tried to increase the amount of money, the Republican majority in the House, for the NICS system. $5 million, we tried to increase it to $12 million. We did this in conjunction with the NRA and others to improve the efficacy of this system for all our benefit. And that was blocked. You know, it was opposed by the President and by the Democrats in the House. And what I found interesting is now the President says he wants to increase that account. That's something we're probably going to agree on improving the funding for the NICS system. You know, the idea of background checks that logically follows that we would talk about it, but I can tell you that that's not going anywhere either, because the same crowd that's pushing the gun ban wants to do a national registry. And I oppose that, and so do my colleagues. So that's, at the federal level, that's pretty much where we're at right now. Let me talk to you about the state level. Many of these comments I want to echo and just say that clearly the process, this was absolutely rushed. There's no question about that, and I think it's really a taint on our processes here in New York State. The substance of it, you know, Pete mentioned the constitutionality. He talked a little bit about some of that, and you know, I've read the cases at the federal level. The Supreme Court cases, Heller, 2008, a case in the District of Columbia, and then the extension of that, the McDonald case of 2010. And you know, the McDonald case is an interesting one. Here's an individual who lived in Chicago, state of Illinois. His neighborhood being overrun by gangs and drug dealers. And so he and his friends, they got together and formed what we would describe as like a neighborhood watch. And towards that end, they also had armed themselves. And at that point, they were challenged because Chicago had a ban against a pistol. And McDonald took it to the courts. It went all the way to the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court reversed the earlier decisions and said that you can regulate, but you can't ban. So, you know, when I read what's been done here at New York State, I think the gun ban is going to be found unconstitutional based on the precedents of Heller that was extended into the Congress. And, you know, what Pete was saying, and also the Senator, look, I think they're spot on when it relates to mental health. You know, in America, it's just integral to who we are that you have the right to due process. It's part of our Bill of Rights. Everyone has the right to appeal, and yet it's not written in the New York State law. I can tell you that my wife is a licensed clinical social worker. Yesterday, they had a conference of the social workers throughout New York State, and they oppose that, what's going on. And I think you're seeing a real community coming together that are standing up against both the process of which this law was enacted and the substance, which steps on our Bill of Rights. And that's really what I want to use the balance of my time to talk about, is the broader implications of what's happened here and what it means for our country. You know, when I retired from the Army about 3 years ago, I focused like a laser on 3 broad goals, having listened to the communities all throughout, at the time, the 137 towns in the 20th Congressional District. And where they wanted the representation to focus was on job creation, opportunity, so everybody had the chance to live the American dream, fiscal responsibility, moving back to a balanced budget so that future generations get the same choices and freedoms that we have. And finally, protection of freedoms. Freedoms are an exceptional way of life, not only from threats from abroad, but from stepping on our civil liberties here at home. So, I've been consistent in my representation in Washington. And I think it's related to this issue because, when the Patriot Act came up for reauthorization, I was one of 27 that voted no. I spent a lifetime protecting this cherished way of life and protecting this Constitution. And they put before me a piece of legislation. And in that, there's stipulation on roving wiretaps. Now look, my friends, the Constitution, the Fourth Amendment is very clear. It says that if you're going to get a warrant, there has to be probable cause, and in the warrant, specificity with person, place, and thing. And so if one's going to try to pursue legislation such as what was put before me, you got to change the Constitution. You can't put forward this legislation that is facially unconstitutional. So I stood against that, and I voted no. And when I had a chance to explain it to folks all over the district, freedom-loving people supported that vote, whether they be Republicans, Independents, or Democrats. So then, we had a bill that was being advanced that was looking to bring regulation to the internet. We had this effort to try to protect our internet. Government was going to get involved. I read this, and I offered them suggestions on how we could actually implement this while protecting our freedoms, our First Amendment right. And quite frankly, they had no interest in taking my input. And so when they came for the vote, I said, you can go without me. I'm not doing that. I'm here to protect our freedoms. And so I voted no. And the support when I explained this was wide from Republicans, Independents, and Democrats. And then the effort to reauthorize the Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Act, FISA. Okay? Again, specificity, there is stipulations in there that I believe step on our Fourth Amendment right. So I explained to them, again, the intent of what they're trying to do, just like trying to protect the internet. I can agree with some of the concepts, but the details matter because we have freedoms and rights. I gave them recommendations on how to do that. They chose not to take it. So I was one that voted no on that. And why I'm bringing that up is, this is a really important point. You may have family and friends who don't own a gun. We need to do the best job that we can to explain them. Yes, this is about the Second Amendment, but in a deeper sense, this is bigger than that. This is bigger than that. Just like I stood up for the Fourth Amendment and the First Amendment, it's consistent that I stand up for the Second Amendment. This great experiment, this country, this was such a change from the history of mankind. The belief that we could live free men and women, not subjects, but citizens. The Second Amendment, the right to keep and bear arms. So I stand strong behind the Second, but I stand strong behind the First, the Fourth, the Fifth, the Sixth, the entire Bill of Rights. So we have to do our work. Here's the larger point. The larger point is this, is that in the days to come, there are going to be those that try to divide us. They're going to talk about this big division, and I think that it's very important we rise above this. That what unites us is the Bill of Rights. The idea that we can live free. And so let it be our charge for all of us that when we go out here, that you may meet people and they say, well, I don't own a gun. I know that you guys having this big fight, but it doesn't affect me. But if they take the Second, how can we be sure? And in fact, history has shown it won't stop there. It'll be the First, it'll be the Fourth, because it'll all be done in what people will argue will be our best interest, but it's not our best interest, because we believe that we can live free. So let's move forward together on that score. I'll take questions.